Welcome back to Refresh Your Marriage. We're going to dive into communication and conflict resolution. Communication can be very difficult. I want you to know that you're not alone, no matter whether you have a great marriage or maybe it's in deep trouble or somewhere in between. Often the culprit is the breakdown of communication. Or, as you're going to learn, not being understood by your partner can cause a lot of pain. I want you to know that we're up against an awful lot of barriers. We've got gender barriers in the way that we communicate. We have personality barriers, just the way God made us. We have personality clashes and differences and styles. We have upbringing patterns from our childhood. We have distractions from life, busyness, you name it. As a matter of fact, just hang on for a second. This guy's just been really, I got to text this guy really quick. Been bothering me. As a matter of fact, sometimes you're on a date and you really want to make sure you're connecting with your spouse. No distractions, eye contact. Feel like you've tuned out the whole world for her or for him. And that kind of helps you reset your day. It kind of helps you feel like even though the world is spinning fast, somehow, some way you've called a timeout and the world stopped turning because you've connected, you've made this deep connection. It might even be small talk, maybe it's something very important, doesn't really matter, but you've connected. Oh man, just hang on for a second. This guy just won't stop texting me. It's okay, let's just take a second. All right. Has this ever happened to you? You're in conversation with your spouse, and for some reason you feel the urge, you have to answer every text and every email and every ding. Or maybe your spouse is doing it to you, and you feel slighted. You feel like you're second rate. You feel like this is more important than this. I know I'm guilty. And so it's interesting, as technology is giving us all these different ways to communicate, our ability to communicate is getting worse and worse and worse. I think it's time to change. I think it's time to go back to our roots. I think it's time to understand the root problem. In Luke chapter 6, verse 45, it says that a good man or good men bring good things out of the goodness stored up in their heart, but an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. And here it is. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And so how I communicate or don't communicate is a reflection of my heart. How often, when, to what degree, how I do it, and it goes for both men and women. So sometimes I want us to realize we don't really have a communication issue. We have a heart issue. And you're going to learn as we go through this journey together that we're going to go deeper and deeper into your heart and help get it to a place where it's healthier, it's more alert, it's more in tune with God and your spouse. So when it comes to communication, I really want to talk about 3 or 4 things. And then I'm going to introduce to you what Dr. Emerson Eggerichs has to say about love and respect and the way that you resolve conflict. But before we get there, 4 simple thoughts about when to resolve conflict and how. And the first thing I kind of want to say is the way we resolve conflict is often the issue. Because if we didn't have conflict, if our spouse always agreed with us, we would not have conflict. And so it tends to be where there's disagreement or what we would call clashing preferences. I want an apple, she wants an orange. I want to leave at 10 o'clock, she wants to leave at 9 o'clock. Clashing preferences. They're not right, they're not wrong. They just clash. And that's where conflict often occurs. And so now you feel the need to say something to your spouse about that clashing preference. And that's kind of where the train often goes off the tracks. So I have a few thoughts. Number one, is before you confront your spouse with an opposing opinion or an opposing view, in other words, you have an opposing preference, or you have an opposing opinion, or you want to confront something they did or didn't do, first question is it the right timing? Timing can be everything. And if your heart is soft and if it's open, you're going to be understanding that this is or isn't good timing. So when is bad timing? Well, the first minute they walk in the door, or maybe right on the heels of a disagreement, right? Maybe in the moment where you're frustrated is poor timing. It's poor timing for you because your heart is not soft. Maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're hurt, maybe you're wounded. I always say if you can delay your opposition, it's going to go much better. Delay it by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, and maybe sometimes a day. Delay your opposing response to your spouse. Delay it. Delaying it gives you a chance to form the words in a way that's caring and kind. Delaying it gives you a chance to pray and let God work on your heart. Delaying it also allows you to determine whether or not it's even necessary, which we'll get to in a moment. And so, is it the right timing? The second thing I want you to ask yourself, is it the right place? Is it the right place? Sometimes in public or around your children or around other people, that's not a good place to be opposing to your spouse, especially all the time. You don't want that. Who wants that? Is it the right place? The third question is, if you find it necessary to oppose, are you doing it in a kind way? In other words, are you kind? Are you nice about it? And the fourth question, is it even necessary to oppose? Is it even necessary to oppose your spouse? Is it necessary to share an opposing opinion? Is it necessary to confront them? And I think as I've matured in my marriage, and I can also say for my wife, Pam, I think as we become more and more mature, we find the need to oppose each other to decrease. We just don't need to. It's not always important that they see an alternative perspective or a different opinion or to confront every issue. Is it even necessary? Now, I want to transition you to hear what Dr. Emerson has to say. The power of love and respect and how it applies to your ability to communicate and to resolve conflict. Feel free to take notes as you listen, and I look forward to seeing you in the next segment. So Emerson, couples just filled out the assessment. They've listened to some instructions from me on communication and conflict resolution. What I would like you to do, Emerson, is to sort of peel the onion a little deeper when it comes to communication and conflict resolution. What would you like to say to these couples through the lenses of love and respect?
Well, I wrote a book called The Language of Love and Respect, and hitting this whole idea of communication, because often, Matt, you'll hear people say the key to marriage is communication. And I often counter that by saying, well, actually, I would say that the key to a successful relationship is mutual understanding. And what do I mean by that? Well, I could speak perfect Spanish and you could speak perfect German. I don't speak German and you don't speak Spanish. So as I say, we could both be speaking to other in our own language, our own mother tongue, that almost is, poetic prose. I mean, those who speak our language, who listen to us could say, wow. In Spanish, Emerson captured perfectly everything he was feeling and thinking. I mean, it was just a profound description of his feelings. And so too, you in German, perfect, all Germans listening to you. But there's just one problem here. I don't speak German and you don't speak Spanish. So we communicated perfectly, but there wasn't mutual understanding. Communication with each other comes about through mutual understanding. Well, now, Emerson, but we both speak English, my wife and I, or my husband and I. Well, yes, but one of the things that I point out is there are a whole lot of male and female things. For instance, every man knows that he will withdraw and stonewall with his best buddy when they get into a heated argument because they don't want to hurt each other. Men are lethal. So we'll actually say, drop it, forget it, because it's the honorable thing to do. It's honorable. Among men, our best friend, we don't want to hurt each other. The topic is irrelevant compared to our relationship. So let's just drop it, forget it, and we'll distance ourselves. And we'll see that actually is honorable because we don't want to hurt each other. But when you do that in marriage, your wife doesn't hear a message that that's honorable. She hears a message of hostility, that you hate me. And ladies, the same thing. In your world, as a woman, you will criticize and complain with your best girlfriends, and you'll have what they call these conflicted emotions. You'll just come at each other emotionally, and you feel very comfortable in the ocean of emotion, and you'll come at each other, and you will express everything you're feeling. Then you'll say, "Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Yes. Will you forgive me?" And then you will reconcile. But you'll criticize and complain because you care, and you both instinctively know that. But when you do that toward your husband, he doesn't respond because he sees this criticism and complaint as contempt, that you're just using this topic as an opportunity to send him a message that you don't like who he is as a human being. So here we have language that we are speaking to the other that we assume the other should know. Men, you assume that when you withdraw and stonewall to calm down because your heartbeats are 99 beats per minute, that she should understand. And ladies, when you move toward him to connect and confront and to criticize, complain, you're actually trying to help him. You care about the marriage, and he just shuts down on you, if not walks away. So now what happens is both of you think, I've communicated perfectly, and this person should fully understand what I just said or did, and they don't. And so we conclude they have a problem. No, the problem is we're communicating based on our gender, the way we feel as men and what we do as men, but women don't process it that way. And ladies, you're doing what every woman will do, but men don't process it that way. So part of the challenge, and we're going to help you with this, is to have this mutual understanding. Why is my spouse saying or doing what they're doing? Is it because they have a serious issue, that they have a serious problem, that they're at fault? Or are they a good-willed person trying to do a good thing here as best they know how to do it, and we're completely misinterpreting them? So this is where we will help couples decode. And once you can begin to decode this behavior and why your spouse does what they do, you'll suddenly begin to grin. You'll begin to have this understanding. Now I know why she's doing what she's doing. Instead of taking up offense, you'll actually see it as God's design, and won't necessarily be comfortable, but you'll understand her heart. She's goodwill, trying to do what she thinks is the right thing. And when you watch him do what he does, instead of taking up offense, you realize, wait a minute, now I get it. And you'll kind of grin. Even though it's not an easy thing, you'll see him as a good-willed man trying to do the honorable thing. And you talk about a tension that just kind of removes itself from a relationship. And we're going to give you illustration after illustration like that will help you in this mutual understanding. And that will result in healthy communication.
I like that, Emerson. And I often say that when couples round the bases, and I've heard this question before, I want to be loving or I want to be respectful, but I don't know how. Like, I don't know exactly how that will minister to my spouse. I just had a guy say that to me recently. And he's like, well, I thought I was being loving. And there are some general things I think we all know are basic loving actions and words. So let's put all those on the shelf for a second. And I want to make a point here that every wife holds a very specific combination to the lock called her heart. And the loving language and the loving behavior that she needs to unlock that combination is unique to her. The husband's role is to figure that out. And he's not going to learn the specifics of that by talking to me or anybody except her. She can communicate to him, if you say this, don't say that. If you can do this for me. Like, for example, in our marriage, I thought hugging Pam in the morning and being really affectionate and complimenting her, or maybe things like that, I thought that, man, that's it. That's all I have to do. And she's going to be the happiest wife in the world. And one morning, she wasn't so happy, even though I was doing those things. I'm like, what gives? She's like, I kind of wish you would just grab a broom and sweep the kitchen. And I started to realize that how she needed me to love her was a unique language that I had to unlock, and I'm still unlocking even after 17 years of marriage. What are your thoughts to that?
Well, Gary Chapman has written, the five love languages, and Gary and I have interacted and talked quite a few times. And I think that book has been extremely helpful, to people to understand that sometimes we're doing what we think would be energizing to our spouse because it's energizing to us. And I think the point you make is all of us have to step back and ask ourselves, what would feel loving or what would feel respectful? And I said to Gary, we kind of need the five respect languages because we again lean toward the feminine side. There are ways that you can communicate, to a husband respectfully that will get through to him, but just loving on him doesn't always do that. That's why you said earlier, we think we're doing the loving thing and it should feel respectful to our husband, or we think we're doing the honorable thing and that should feel loving to our wives. And we've got to step back, and one point you're making, sometimes just asking our spouse, what would make you feel loved and respected? When people say, I don't know, I'm trying to do the loving, respectful thing, but it's not getting through. And I, first of all, high five it, saying you're a goodwill person, you're a noble person, and we need to put 10 check marks, by it. I mean, it's excellent, excellent. But now you're realizing your spouse isn't receiving this. So let's then ask the question. And are you afraid to ask your spouse the question? What would feel more loving to you? What would feel more respectful to you? And here is where a lot of people, Matt, become afraid. They're afraid of this because it's going to subject them possibly to failure. And so one of the things we want to help in rounding the bases, we're going to give you those tools. We'll allow for these conversations to take place. And don't be afraid of that. See it as an opportunity to energize the other person. At the same time, I want to challenge all of us that there can be this unrealistic expectation we have of our spouse. Women will say, I want my husband to romance me, to surprise me, to make me laugh. And also she's on Facebook and she wants to give, as many women have said, I want to tell all my friends how wonderful my husband is. And so now suddenly it's more about her friends and her appearance than it is about the good-willed man that he is. He's quiet, he's an introvert, he would die for her, but he's not sentimental, he's not as sensitive as he should be, he doesn't write poetry, and she has a set of expectations that are unrealistic. Or the same thing, a guy has this expectation of ongoing sexual intimacy and that they're going to be in, on honeymoon mode all the time. God hasn't wired women the same way, particularly if you got 3 children under 5. And how do we make for these adjustments? How are we to be a mature person who lets go of some of this on the other side of the equation? And as we address that, we'll help you on both sides. Don't be afraid of asking your spouse what feels loving and respectful. You can handle that. That's a positive conversation. Although we feel we're going to be subjected to failure if we don't jump through that hoop. But we'll soften that a little bit. We'll help you with that. At the same time, we're appealing to all of us to be honest. Is it realistic for me to expect my spouse to do X, Y, Z? Is that really what God intends? I talk about having a Hollywood mindset or a Hollywood mindset. If you have a Hollywood mindset, you have a 99% expectation that it almost ought to be perfect. But a Hollywood expectation, what I call 80-20. 20%, 1 Corinthians 7:28, if you marry not sin, you will have trouble. 20% of the time, we're going to have normal troubles. And if we don't have that perspective, then that 19% difference, that discrepancy there will disillusion you and embitter you. And then you'll take it out on your spouse when the truth is you had an unrealistic expectation. It was too excessive. All of us have the residual of paradise within us. God created us to be perfect. And that expectation, that idealism is within us. But we now live in a fallen world. And though paradise remains within us and we should push toward that, we mustn't push so hard that we become unrealistic, because if so, you'll become a disillusioned, embittered person, and you'll hold your spouse responsible for your own unrealistic expectation. So how do you find the balance there? Well, it's a dance, it's an art, it's not always a science. But I think we have to create that framework, and then we begin to think through, okay, is this a moment where I need to kind of let go of that expectation? Or should I really honestly communicate, hey, here's what would really make me feel loved and respected. And welcome to the dance. And we're going to step on each other's toes. but keep moving forward on the dance floor. You'll do it.
I love that. I also want to exaggerate a point you made because I think it's such a missing component. Just as important is it for me to figure out Pam's love combination to her heart. It's equally important that she understands the respect combination to my heart. And I do think that's missing in a lot of marriage curriculums out there. And so for the listeners and for those going through Refresh, please know this is balanced perfectly. Both matter. The husband's heart matters equally to the wife's heart. And when you round the bases, and it's going to help you learn how to communicate differently and resolve conflict differently. But when you get to third base, between third and home, you're going to start to understand what the other person wants. You're going to have what we call a compromising spirit to give up your will from time to time. Doesn't mean you're going to lose. You both win. But what happens there, the beauty of it is sort of majestic, is you're both learning what it's going to take to unlock the combination to the other person's heart. And it's a beautiful thing. It's not easy, but when it happens, it's extremely bonding. And that's what rounding the bases is designed to do. It's unique to you. It's unique to your issues when you round the bases, when you've got an issue. And only you two can resolve this. We can't resolve it for you. And that's why we've integrated that into this process called Refresh.
Well, and let me add, I think the point you were making about unlocking the man's heart. I wrote the book Love and Respect based on Ephesians 5:33 because it's fair and balanced. And when men feel honored and justly treated, they'll deal with their issues. Men will. But if men feel dishonored and unjustly treated, that it's all about a woman's need, happy wife, happy life. And where do we see a poster with anything about the male in the culture? And that doesn't mean that if a man loves his wife, she's not going to be happy. She most certainly will. But there are two in the marriage. And one of the things we've discovered is that men are, just as you pointed out earlier in that open discussion, men are very cautious in saying things. You got to pull them out. They won't say things. Women are very quick to point out things, but men are different. And Shaunti Feldhahn, good friend, did some research, and a decision analyst out of Houston did a random sample of the American male, 400, and they were so blown away by the results, they did another random sample of 400 because they couldn't believe it as a secular group. And Shaunti called me. She said, this is one of the questions that I'd like to ask. Do you think I should? And I said, absolutely, Shaunti. The question was this: would you men rather be left alone and unloved in the world, or be viewed as inadequate and disrespected by everyone? Again, would you men rather be left alone and unloved in the world, or be viewed as inadequate and disrespected by everyone? And that almost 75% of the American male, not the church male, the American male, and church men would be involved in that. Almost 75% of those individuals said they'd rather be left alone and unloved in the world. Men are very vulnerable to the message, I don't respect you, and you're inadequate as a human being. In fact, because you're inadequate as a human being, I don't respect you. Now, what's happened in the culture of intimacy, which is pink in its orientation, it's all about love. That sentiment in the male has been viewed as narcissistic, that men have serious problems. But what if God designed your son this way? And I always say that, what if your boy feels this? Do you want your sweet daughter-in-law to tell him that he's narcissistic, egotistical, it's all about him? Or did God wire men with a vulnerability to this message? I find you inadequate as a human being, as a husband, as a father, and I don't respect you because of it. And until you love me and help me overcome the sense of loneliness I have in the marriage, you're not getting one iota of respect from me. Now, what I point out is that message will close off every male. So as we step through rounding the bases, one of the difficulties for women is the culture has said it's all about love. If we just love each other, that's all that matters. And that's how God has wired you. We appeal to you to reconsider whether the key to getting to your husband's heart, to unlocking that, the key that will unlock his heart is understanding his vulnerability to the message, that you find him inadequate and that you don't respect him. Now, that doesn't mean that everything he does is respectful. We're not talking about that, nor is it adequate. But don't look at his deepest heart and send that message any more than he should send a message to you. No one could love who you are as a woman. No one could love you. And I have no intentions of loving you. See, there are certain messages that we want to avoid. So as we tiptoe through this, it's okay to feel a little bit like, I don't know how to do this. That's okay. We're going to coach you on this. But we want you to lock into some of these ideas. Don't be dismissive of the other one because your spouse feels in a way that you don't feel. Let's trust what Jesus said. Have you not read? He who made them from the beginning made them male and female. In other words, not wrong, just different. Pink's not wrong for not being blue. Blue's not wrong for not being pink. They're just different.
I love it. So let's wrap up with this. When you round the bases with communication and conflict resolution, just keep love and respect at the central part of your heart. Wives, understand this great need that your husband has to round the bases and work out your differences and have your disagreements, but can you do it with a respectful attitude? And after doing this and after going through all these segments, I think you're just going to get much better at it. You might even get great at it. Husband, same thing. When you round the bases and you've got your disagreements and you get from first to second to third, and it can be frustrating, but if you can just wrap yourself as much as possible with a loving attitude, a cautious spirit, don't break the fragile spirit of your wife, I think you're going to see results. And if you can just start small and go with us along this journey, it's going to become second nature for you to round the bases in a loving and respectful way. But in this first segment, we expect it to be a little bit awkward because you haven't been doing this for a long time. You certainly probably haven't been doing it well.
Well, let me add real quick here that all of us wonder, as Matt just said, how do I do that? And so you can just say, how do I say this in a way that sounds loving? I don't know how to do this loving thing. Just say that. That in and of itself will energize you. So too, I don't know how to do this respectful thing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Help me here right now. And the reason this is important is, let's talk, you're talking about money or sex. And then you get into this heated moment and we flare up and we get really angry in the home, whatever. And we think if we didn't have the money problems, because he says, you're always spending, women, you spin. All you want is sex, you animal. And we think if we didn't have the money problems and the sex problems, we'd have a great relationship. But here's what the research has pointed out. Gentlemen, it was your unloving attitude toward her spirit when you were addressing the money issue. That's what closed her off and deflated her. The issue of money is important, but it's no longer the root issue. The problem here is your unloving demeanor toward her heart when you're addressing money. And ladies, you think if we didn't have the sex issue, we'd have a wonderful relationship. No, it was the contempt you showed toward him when you called him an animal. So we have to be reminded that love and respect is not a simplistic thing. It is really the key, the foundation. That if I come across in a way that feels contemptuous or hostile, feels disrespectful or unloving, while we're addressing these issues, you're going to lose the spirit of your spouse. And this is true for any of us. It's true for Sarah and me. I wrote the book, Love and Respect. And if I come across in a harsh, angry, unloving way while I'm addressing an issue and I see your spirit deflate, it would be very easy for me to say, she doesn't want to deal with how she's spending money. No, she's too vulnerable around my unloving attitude. And if we get this, you're going to be miles ahead. But what happens is we don't think that we're coming across in that unloving or disrespectful way. And we have to call ourselves into check. And we even have to ask, am I coming across in a way that feels unloving and disrespectful to you? And if we are, and they say we are, and we say, well, we're not, we can either debate with them that they're wrong, or we can say, you know what, I'm going to make an adjustment here. Because the deal is I want to get through to them. And if you do this, you're not going to lose a sense of self and identity. You're not going to lose power. You're actually going to increase your influence. And you have to decide, do I want to motivate? Do I want to energize? Do I want to influence the spirit of my spouse? If you do, and you want to be happy, this is the path to take. It's been proven again and again among couples of goodwill. The University of Washington studied 2,000 couples for 20 years. And they said, we now know the two key ingredients for successful marriages, love and respect. And they said those marriages that succeeded had a tone of love and respect as they conversed with each other, a tone. It didn't make any difference how old they were, how many kids they had, how much money they made. None of the demographics mattered. The marriages that succeeded had a tone, had a demeanor of love and respect toward the heart of the other person. And those relationships that did not succeed, they had that hostility and contempt. In fact, there was a book written, Why Marriages Succeed or Fail. based on that 20-year research. Trust me, it's like food and water. There's more to the cancer patient than food and water. They need chemo, they need radiation. We get that. And there's more to marriage than just love and respect. There are addictions, there are many number of things. We get that. This isn't, a simplistic idea with two simpletons here. But here's the deal. Food and water is absolutely foundational to survival. You say, well, it's not going to cure the cancer. Got it. I get it. Okay, let's stop having food and water for 4 days. You're dead. And you didn't die from the cancer. You died from malnourishment and lack of hydration. And so what we're saying is love and respect is like food and water. It has to be present while you're addressing these other issues. Right. You take that off the radar screen, the marital radar screen, and you'll kill the relationship. So trust me here. Have this as the foundation, as the food and water, as we move forward. Will you do it perfectly? Sarah and I don't do it perfectly. No one's going to do it perfectly. But here's the deal. You can do it less imperfectly.
Well said, Emerson. So that's it. Go ahead, dive into this segment. And I want you to round the bases. I want you to score. I want you to keep track of your answers. Write down your answers. Because every time you write down the solution to one of your issues, and you did it in a loving and respectful way, that is going to be gold for you. That is going to be the pathway to a different marriage, a better marriage. Not only did you resolve a technical issue by rounding the bases and scoring, but you practice being loving and respectful. It's a win, win, win. God bless you. We'll see you in the next segment.
Now you're ready to round the bases with your mentor couple in this category. They have the results to your survey, and they'll be selecting the very specific areas of concern that the survey will reveal, and they're going to help you round the bases and score.